Okay. We'll need to take a verbal roll call before we get started. Commissioner Hemmer, are you here? It looks like he is not here yet. Commissioner Bergeron, are you here?
Excuse me, I'm here.
Good morning. Commissioner Weiner, are you here?
I am here.
This is Commissioner Hemmer. I'm here as well.
Oh, great. I didn't see you on there. Good morning. Okay, before we get started as well, let's talk about call-in time. We're going to have public comment time coming up. It'll be for all agenda items, and it's going to be all taken at the same time. Members of the public wishing to speak on matters posted for public comment time may call the following number, 629-255-1939. Again, that number is 629-255-1939. And we're going to circle back in a moment to see if we have anyone on the line. Before we get started, we need to address that this will be a virtual meeting. So I move that the proposed agenda constitutes essential business and meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and well-being of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Weiner. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Hemmer?
Aye.
Commissioner Bergeron?
Aye.
Commissioner Weiner?
Aye.
Great, thank you. So we're going to officially call the meeting to order now. I'll read our legal notice to get started. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Board of Fair Commissioners today, you may appeal that decision by petitioning a writ of cert for the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the board's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact your own independent legal counsel. Okay, moving on to our second agenda item, the approval of minutes from the previous meeting. Christy circulated these to us all. We've had a little bit of time to look over them. Let me know if there is a motion there.
Commissioner Hemmer, motion to approve.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote then. Commissioner Hemmer?
Aye.
Commissioner Bergeron?
Aye.
Commissioner Weiner?
Aye.
And I realized as a matter of procedure that normally we all say it at the same time that I have not been entering my aye, so I am officially an aye for that and the past votes. Sorry about that. Okay, moving on to public comment time. I'll read that number again in case anyone missed it. If you'd like to make a comment, please call us at 629-255-1939. And now we're going to open the floor for public comment. I believe that Councilman Sledge is with us this morning. Colby, are you here?
Aaron, I don't see him on here, but
Okay.
I'll keep a lookout, and when he joins, I can give you a heads up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, do we have any public calls right now?
Chair McAnally, is our council raising his hand
right now?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Madam Chair, if I could speak for 1 second. This is Alex Dickerson with Metro Legal.
Sure.
I wanted to clarify that on October 1st, there was a bit of a change in the way that electronic meetings run. The only change that really matters for you all is that anytime anyone is speaking, they have to identify themselves the way that the governor's executive order reads. Any person who's observing the live stream must be able to reasonably identify who the speaker is. So just be clear, if you're doing a motion, a second, or having some type of discussion, be it a commissioner, a staff member, or any member of the public, they need to make sure to identify themselves before they speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dickerson. Commissioner Bergeron, did you have something?
Oh, sorry. No, I saw Alex's virtual hand was raised, and I was just seeing if that was if indeed he was asking to speak. That's all.
Thank you for calling that to attention. I'm flipping back between documents, so
the little hand is hard to see.
Yeah, it's tiny. Awesome. Okay, thanks. All right, Mrs. Johnson, we'll check back in with you to see if there is anyone on the line.
There are no callers at this time.
Okay, great. We will now close the floor for public comment. Okay, next up we have the financial report. Satrice, can you take it away for us?
Good morning, everyone. This is Satrice speaking.
Morning.
The preliminary actuals through September 2020 are as follows. Revenues through September are $16,321. Expenditures are roughly $428,000, resulting in a net loss of $411,605. Depreciation expense is approximately $86,000, so the total net loss is $497,583. Payroll and utilities are two of our highest expenditures. Payroll expense is $279,715, which is 65% of our total expenses. Utilities expense is $88,497, which is 21% of our total expenses. Our third expenditure is typically insurance and LOCAP. However, these expenses have not yet posted to the ledger. I believe they will post pretty soon, so we should see those on our next at our next hearing. I would like to provide an update concerning last fiscal year. As of now, last fiscal year's books have not closed. Once the books have officially closed, I will provide an update concerning the financials to the board. This concludes the financial report. Any questions?
Any questions for Satrice? Okay, great. We will move. Thank you, Satrice. We'll move on to the Executive Director's report. Laura, good morning.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Laura Womack. Few things. First of all, I want to thank Misty and Allison and Christy. I know Christy isn't on the meeting today, but I want to just give a thank you to them. They have been working the phones and being present and getting these meetings run for public comment and such when we have these virtual meetings. So I just wanted to thank them for their efforts. We have started tentatively resuming events. So as you know that we are not open for indoor events, but we have had some outdoor events. Scott Wallace is on. He is a panelist, and we have an event update as an item on the agenda. But again, I want to thank staff. We've had to think outside the box, and everybody has really just been very flexible and innovative and creative to try to accommodate appropriate outdoor events with social distancing and masks, and just really working closely with Metro Public Health. So just want to thank everybody for their efforts there. As regarding the flea market, you will see that there's some a little bit of revenue, but what we are also doing is two things with the flea market at this time. We are processing refunds. So when we knew that we were going to be closed for a significant amount of time due to COVID, we wanted to make sure that if any of our vendors requested a refund, that we were able to process that. So for the matter of just really public notice, if a flea market vendor or an event promoter has put a deposit down and you are looking to request a refund, please contact the office and we will work with you to work through that process of getting refunds back to you. The other thing that we have done is this, I believe it was yesterday morning, we sent a survey link out via text message to our flea market vendors to gauge interest in the possibility of opening an outdoor-only market. And so we'll share those results with you once received. We're considering doing an outdoor market in light of the fact, again, that we are not doing indoor events. Also with the consideration that outdoor events or large gatherings are still limited to 500 people. So we've gotten some feedback kind of on both sides from vendors, whether or not they would participate in an outdoor market. And so in order to make sure as many people have a voice in that decision, the link was sent out with the survey. So we will, again, share those results with you once we receive them in probably middle of next week. Yesterday afternoon, the Tennessee State Fair and Exposition Commission met, and they voted to pursue moving the Tennessee State Fair to Wilson County. They had formed an advisory group that has been working with Wilson County since they met last, since the commission met last, and this advisory committee had put forth a recommendation to the full commission yesterday to proceed on a vote of 4-1 to continue the pursuit of moving the Tennessee State Fair. So I think there's a lot of things that they still need to work through, but that is something that we need to probably consider moving forward is what this means for us in putting on a divisional fair if the state fair moves and TSFA along with it. So it's new information, and I don't want to share too many thoughts about that at this point, but please be aware that that movement is certainly heading in that direction to relocate the fair. And so we will have to adjust accordingly. And so we will certainly work on that, some additional details over the next month, and have my plan would be to have a recommendation to the board on how to proceed at our November meeting. As you know, we are still functioning as a homeless shelter. We have, the census varies, by day. I believe we're sitting at about 250 total at the moment. We are in discussions with Office for Emergency Management and Social Services on status of that shelter, and we will continue to have discussions. We've got a walk through the shelter on Friday, and so I can report more next meeting, kind of what the status is of the shelter moving forward. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, and I see that Councilman Sledge is on too, so this may be a good time to have his input as well, is some of the exercises that we're having to do in light of the referendum that has been submitted to the Election Commission. We have been asked a couple different times by Metro Finance and Administration to look at cost reduction opportunities. I'm sure you can imagine we're running pretty lean right now as it is. We have done a lot of, because we're not doing a lot of event work at the moment, we have made significant reductions in our contracted staffing because we don't need as many temporary staff as we have in the past. We're going to be prioritizing using full-time staff to work any events that we do have, because they're going to be smaller footprint events and less attendees. But it is definitely an impact that will be felt by the fairgrounds, and I can't say that enough, is that this is it was an exercise that was very difficult to project what our budget would look like with such a reduction. As you know, we're not making revenue, and so we would be very much reliant on Metro subsidy this year. And knowing that we have a potential for, a further reduction, it's gonna, I feel like we're already very lean. So that is some very difficult decisions could be around the corner, not only operationally, but from a capital perspective as well, and the impact that this referendum could have on capital and further improvements to certainly the stadium, to additional expo work, and to the speedway as well. And that's very, very concerning. So those are the topics that I wanted to talk about, and I'm sure that Councilman Sledge has some insight for us on this and potentially other items as well.
Yep. Thanks, Director Womack. So I think everything that was said is absolutely accurate as far as our lived experience has been. And I want to stress to board members and anybody who's on the call, there is still a lot that's up in the air about this. And I think everybody's aware from news reports that, there are legal questions right now that the Election Commission is trying to get answered. There's language in the proposed referendum that potentially seems like it affects the fairgrounds property one way or the other. But to be quite honest with you, our legal, Metro legal director, Bob Cooper, put out sort of an analysis a few weeks ago that went through myriad problems that he saw in it. And remember, he's a former attorney general, so he looks at these things with that experience as well. But the questions about language and how it could affect, how one sentence could affect the fairgrounds versus another, I will say that is still very much up in the air. But here's what we do know as council members and as sort of working in Metro. Every potential dollar right now that had been allocated or pursued regarding bond issuance and things like that is on hold, and that is just across Metro. Laura referred to capital impact. We are seeing that already across Metro. There are, we haven't really had a capital spending plan, which allocates those funds for capital dollars across the county in an unusually long time for this council, dating back to essentially the Great Recession 12 years ago. We don't have any capital spending plan in sight. We are going through our capital improvements budget process right now in council, just because this is the time of year we do it, and there are just a lot of questions as to whether things are even included for consideration. I can also tell you, I serve as the council representative on the Housing Trust Fund Commission, so that's what most people would refer to as the Barnes Fund. We had allocated around $10 million in that fund, as typically happens, year after year. Half of that fund went to make up from a prior impoundment from the finance director, and then we got word last week that the remaining $5 that was going to go toward. In fact, nonprofits were putting out applications. They were turning them in. Our deadline was this week for turning those in. That deadline has been extended to mid-January because we don't know what's going to happen. And I can almost sit here and guarantee you that if there were any question from this referendum that those funds would potentially be affected, they'll be impounded again, which means they'll essentially be lost. So we're seeing these effects already throughout Metro. Hiring freezes have gone back on. What that means for the fairgrounds from a capital standpoint is everything that Laura just listed, plus things that we've talked about previously about the second phase of Fair Park and the additional work done there. None of that will even be on the table. I mean, it won't even be up for discussion because we will not have the capital funding. We won't have the operating funding, quite honestly. And because, even though the fairgrounds even though the Fair Board's an enterprise fund, as was mentioned, many of our properties are relying on subsidies right now from Metro that are pass-throughs, basically all from the CARES Act. That CARES Act funding must be spent by the end of this year. There is no more relief in sight, and there cannot be funding allocated for anticipated losses past the end of this year, meaning even if we know that there are going to be extended losses into 2021, none of the federal funding that we have now for COVID relief can be used for those anticipated losses. So we have, we're coming up to essentially the cliff, the financial cliff of being able to say, are we going to have the revenues that we need? Not just to do the things that we would like to do in the city, but quite frankly, to do the things that a city has to do, to fund, to fund schools, to fund a police service, to fund a fire service, to fund trash pickup. None of this is hyperbole. If the revenue is put in jeopardy, or if there is some sort of repeal, as is mentioned, every department, every Metro asset will be drastically affected. So that's the overview with a little bit of what's going on, how it would directly impact the fairgrounds and the Fair Board's operations. And then I would encourage you, if you want to see more on the Attorney General, Metro Legal and former Tennessee Attorney General Cooper's analysis, I think it provides further insight.
Thank you, Councilman Sledge, for that harrowing overview. Do we have any questions for Councilman Sledge or for Mrs. Womack? Okay, so we will move on to old business. Mr. Henley, are you here?
I am. Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
Awesome. Well, yes, again, good morning to the board, council, and staff. I'll be conducting a budget update this morning for the fairgrounds improvement projects, and you all should have access to the latest budget dashboard for the improvement projects. I believe it should be dated the 9th of October. And so hopefully if everyone has that, I'll go ahead and begin my review, but I'll start by saying that there has not been a lot of movement, at least from the financial side, since our last board meeting. It's roughly 60 days. But as I go through the dashboard, I will give some high level comments and of course provide some material updates for you. So feel free to ask any questions as I move through that. I'll start with just, overall update on project expenditures. From the inception of the fairgrounds improvement projects to date, we have now crossed the $46,700,000 mark in terms of expenditures. And so what that means is just now there is less than $3 million in total funds remaining. The expo remains at that 99% complete mark that we've been at for a little while now. Of course, we've been working through what we can, but some of the final construction related items as well as expenditures have been delayed by COVID. But during the past couple weeks, Satrice and I and the fairgrounds team, as well as the project management team, we spent our time ensuring that our accounting is up to date for all project related costs. So I want to just, take this time to thank Satrice for that and her team. Feel extremely confident about where we are with our budgetary items and believe that nothing's falling through the cracks. We've got everything captured in the dashboard that you all are seeing this morning. Outside of the expo, just moving down the dashboard, the multi-purpose building project, which is honestly where the majority of the remaining funds are allocated. Work has not commenced there, but a lot of administrative efforts have taken place. And just for the board's purview, just wanted to make sure you guys know that the design work for that is completed, and the contract negotiations are underway with an awarded contractor. Contractor that was awarded is K&J Associates. I believe they're out of Greenbrier, Tennessee, or Goodlettsville, Tennessee. Don't hold me to that. I'm pretty sure it's a G, but and it's in that direction. I believe it's Greenbrier. But I just wanted to give that update. And Roxanne, of course, being the leader of our diversity participation program, of course, if we were in person, would be tapping me on the shoulder to make sure I said this. But K&J is a woman-owned business. And they also have a commitment to utilize small business in their construction of that facility. The demolition, the next category on the sheet, demolition has been completed for the extent that's needed for the MLS Stadium, as you all are aware. Final payments to the contractor are approved and in process, if not already paid at this time, but that was something that was done at the back end of September. And that work was done by Renaissance, and they also were a woman-owned business. The grandstands, they currently have no outstanding items except for HVAC. There's a purchase order for HVAC unit replacement and some associated costs. If you're looking at your sheet, the dashboard currently, you'll see roughly 58 or so $1,000, $58,756 and some change as a cost to complete in that category. That's just the cost associated with that work. To date, we just haven't received or paid any invoices for that, but just wanted to highlight what remaining work that there is. And I know we had a question at our last meeting from Caleb. I believe we got you a breakdown of that. Sorry for the delay in getting you that information, but hopefully that addresses that comment from our last board meeting. If there are no questions on that page, I'll pause for a moment to allow questions, but if not, I'll jump to Fair Park. All right. Movement on Fair Park has been extremely minimal, little to none in terms of financial expenditures, as we've essentially completed the construction work there. A little bit of administrative time has been spent as we work to close that out. But I think there are two things, I guess, to mention. The demolition and related work of Fair Park in the phase one of that project has been completed. The last part of that was removing the stakes and the silk fencing, which occurred in early September. So, a little bit late in providing an update to the board, but it has been completed. And also in September, Fair Park was approved by ADA, which was something that we had been working to do over the past few months. And so that officially was done as we closed out the month of September. And so where that project stands, with, again, largely being complete in kind of a relative state to where we are with the expo, just under $230,000 left to be allocated there. So again, all in all, we've kind of eclipsed the hurdles on both of those projects. Main project for focus of the near future is the multi-purpose building, and we're remaining with about $3 million, maybe just a hair less in total funds remaining.
Thank you so much, Mr. Henley. Do we have any questions? Okay, great. Thank you again.
My pleasure.
Mrs. Cavaro, can we move on? Sorry.
Yeah. Excuse me, Madam Chairman. This is Ron Gobble. Let me bring you up to speed on the infrastructure project quickly. The infrastructure project we just received the 95% design drawings. We started reviewing those literally this week. And we've got the construction management selection is going through procurement. Our goal is to have construction started early in 2021. One of the things Ed mentioned, the multi-purpose building. We're trying to coordinate the utilities being available when that facility is finished. So these are all interconnected, and that process is going. We have several milestones we need to meet to match the stadium construction. So the infrastructure project is a Sports Authority project, and that's just an overview. Goal again is to have it completed about the same time as the stadium. Are there any questions about the infrastructure project?
This is Jason Bergeron. I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
Ron, you said technically the infrastructure project is a Sports Authority project?
Yes.
Okay, got it. And you said it's going through procurement. Has the project manager been selected, or are the bids still pending?
But to be clear, we're the project managers along with CPS.
Okay.
The construction manager or the contractor.
Sorry. Yeah.
That procurement process has been closed. We got 3 good submittals. They've been evaluated, and procurement's going through the process of selecting one of those and negotiating that process. And again, our hope is to be under construction early next year.
Thanks.
If we can just, Ron, can you just really quickly, if you don't mind, this is Laura Womack, can you just run through briefly what the infrastructure, the components of that are, just as a reminder to everyone on the call?
Sure, I'm happy to. It's an extension of Wedgwood, rebuilding Wedgwood from Rains Avenue all the way to Craighead, including a new bridge. That road will be a 3-lane road with bike paths and large sidewalks and planter strips. Then there will be an extension of Benton Avenue where it will be taken up the hill from Bransford, curving around and hitting Wedgwood right about the edge, right about the turn forward of the Speedway. And that street will be a 2-lane street with a little bit of on-street parking. It will have sidewalks and planter strips as well. And then there will be utilities associated with all of those to support the stadium and the various other projects on the campus. Did I get it all, Laura? Is I miss anything?
No, thank you, Ron.
Any other questions? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gobble. All right, moving on to the MLS Stadium update. Mrs. Kavara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Mary Kavara. Good morning, all. I'm here on behalf of Nashville Soccer Club and our ownership group. I will share a brief update on the team and the MLS Stadium project. The team has been playing since mid-August, and we will wrap up the season November 4th at home. There are 4 remaining home matches at Nissan Stadium with restricted attendance, and I'll go ahead and put a pitch in that there are tickets available for those that are interested. And there's plenty of very safe procedures. I had actually attended the match last week. As with all of the other clubs in town, our priority remains focused on the safety of our fans, the players, and staff. We also continue to work within the community, and a couple of recent examples include Napier Elementary, where working with Hands On Nashville, we've assembled encouragement kits that were distributed to the students at their homes. And we've also are working on a mini soccer pitch at the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Center in Southeast Nashville. This also is an area that's very important to us, and we'll continue to share what we're doing in the community. Progress continues at the stadium. Earthwork is well underway. Next, they'll be moving to the vertical structural construction. The GMP, or the guaranteed maximum price, was approved by the Sports Authority back in August. We've pretty much awarded all of the bid packages. And at this point, it looks like we're tracking about 36% DBE participation. And as a reminder, this project had a target of 30%, which is one of the highest to date at that point. And so, again, another area that we are committed to making sure we can hit the target and try to do better than that. In addition to the DBE participation, Mortensen Messer also has an initiative to try to increase the number of women and minority labor hours at the job. And at this point, they're tracking about 26% and will continue to report on this statistic as well. As we stated before, we believe it's really important to be a good neighbor. We continue with the weekly updates and the quarterly meetings for those neighbors who are closest to the stadium. And also, as construction issues arise, as they would with a project of this size, we're working with the construction manager to make sure that those are addressed on a timely basis and that we're able to do what we can to try to minimize the impact on the neighborhood. This concludes my update. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Kavara. Board, do we have any questions?
Yes, Chairman. Yes, Chairman McAnally. This is Commissioner Hemmer. Thank you, Mary, for coming. From looking at the presentation you sent over, I had one question about the egress from gate 2, and I was just having a hard time envisioning where that was on the property. Is that on the other side of the creek in the old voting center?
I don't have that right in front of me, but if this is towards kind of the south end of the site, that will actually end up being the entrance for the back of the stadium where parking will be, as well as the entrance down into kind of the loading dock area.
Okay.
Caleb, Caleb, this is Laura. That is a new entrance. So that is connecting the site directly to Bransford Avenue to the north of Voters Island.
Thank you.
And in fact, this is Ron Gobble. If you want to just drive down Bransford, you can see where it's connecting.
Okay. Was that a property that access already there, or was that a new parcel that was purchased by the team?
It was part of the Fairgrounds project property.
Just, I guess, some grading. It was probably.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
But it's on the other side of the creek from Butters Island, so it's not that.
All right. Thanks, all. Any more questions?
Hey, this is Jason Bergeron. I just wanted to thank Mrs. Kavara for the presentation and the updates, and really excited about the team's efforts to be a really good community partner. I just wanted to highlight that the soccer field at the new Turk headquarters is just an all around awesome project, and again and again, what we're seeing from National Soccer Holdings is their willingness to go above and beyond and be a really good, involved, active partner in this community on the site. So I just really appreciate that. I wanted to call that out.
Agreed. Thank you, Commissioner Bergeron, for calling that out. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, bylaws. Laura?
All right, thank you. So, as you know, a couple meetings ago, we started the process of just reviewing our board bylaws. Since then, many of you have submitted some notes and thoughts about any updates or review to those bylaws. I want to thank Alex Dickerson for helping kind of massage some of that language that we've incorporated in. You do have copies of a draft in front of you, so I will just open it up for discussion, and if there are any conversation or any edits that you would like to see, we can work through those today.
Thank you, Laura. And thank you both for putting all the work in here. I do have a question on section F, number 2, items, I think B, C, and E. I have a few questions. So I just wanted to make sure that B doesn't limit us. It says when it is applicable, a report from another board or entity of metropolitan government shall be presented. Does that limit us only to that, or because oftentimes we have outside people that we have contracts with presenting, does that limit us at all? That's a question that I have. And then the procedure is a little bit different than we typically operate in general, the rundown. So we don't typically have public ask staff questions as it's stated in C. So I have a question about that. What the sort of intention of that is? Does that change our procedure? And then also item E, which contemplates when proponents and opponents to what we're contemplating would speak. We have not done that in the past. So I just wanted to know if this is intended to change that procedure that we have been utilizing.
I think it's Laura. I think I can address, so there's really two things that are addressed in the bylaws. One is normal monthly commission meetings like we're in today, and two is public hearings. So if you recall back when we were doing a lot of the stadium public engagement and we were doing those hearings, that's a very specific type of meeting. And so that section, as I read it, and Alex can, chime in, F is for a very specific topic usually. And again, I'll remind everyone of how we ran our public hearing for the soccer discussions. And so that's where you get into these very detailed procedures, which, yes, are different than what we do for a normal monthly meeting.
Very good. Sorry about that.
Yeah, this is Alex Dickerson. I agree with the executive director's opinion on that. That's only for public hearing, and the edits we made, that section was largely untouched. There's a one edit that I think we made in the Word document that just clarifies that the board may allow the presentation of viewpoints under subsection E. We made a small language change there.
Thanks. Sorry for wasting everyone's time. I should have had more coffee. Any questions from the board?
Hey, Chairman. This is Jason Bergeron. I had a similar question under item C, and I just want to kind of make sure I'm understanding it correctly in that same section. So when they're talking about first commissioners and the public may ask staff to clarify, it's the content of the agenda item, right? I mean, I have a similar concern just because I don't want that to be, I want to make sure we're understanding that because some quarters seem to have some intent of sort of, asking staff. So I just want to clarify what that provision means is that, they can ask staff to clarify the content of the agenda item, not necessarily conduct a 5-hour cross-examination of our staff during a public hearing.
Hi, Jason. This is Laura Womack. Yes, that's how I read that it is just making sure that everyone is very clear on the purpose of the public hearing being held.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
I do. Okay. I have a couple. Are we just on public hearing in general, or are we looking at the whole document?
We're looking at the whole document. I was only looking at public hearing. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, so the whole document.
Okay, so if you'll bear with me a minute, I've got a couple of questions on several different sections. Section 5 under meetings, where it's talking about regular meetings of the Fair Board shall be held a minimum of one time per month, blah, blah, blah. There's a statement in there that I don't understand the reason for it and what predicated it being included. It may have been there forever, and I'm not sure what the value is. So this is my question where that's concerned, where it stipulates regular meetings of the Fair Board involve different kinds of transactions, and except on occasions where a public hearing is set, the board will uniformly base its decision on information and recommendations presented to the board by the executive director and or staff, and commissioners may ask questions of others for clarification of factual matters. So that's my first one. And if for purposes of clarification, this is Sherry Weiner.
Thank you, Commissioner Weiner. Mr. Dickerson or Laura, do you have a response to that?
This is Alex Dickerson. I don't know what the origin of that particular phrasing is, and I'm not exactly. Laura might have a better idea of what that means, or what the origin was.
I don't. This was part of the bylaws when I started. My thought is that it is board enough flexibility to discuss a variety of topics, as well as allow for kind of that other discussion, that if, say, there is somebody in attendance, like oftentimes we'll do this with Scott Jones with State Fair as an example, where he's present during a meeting, and I feel like this portion of the bylaws allows for kind of that spontaneous discussion and addressing people and discussing with people who are there just to give more context for a conversation. And I think that's part of the good thing about our bylaws, is that it does allow that flexibility to occur.
This is Sherry Weiner. I'm not sure it accomplishes that when I read it. I'm not sure that it specifies that if we have somebody else that's coming in to have a conversation about a particular topic, I just don't see that it does that. I'm a little uncomfortable with it, simply because it looks like it will uniformly base its decision on information and recommendations presented to the board by the director and or staff. I just think it needs to be reworded, and I'm not exactly sure how at this point. But I wanted to bring that up because that doesn't make sense to me. I would love to hear from Alex about that, just in terms of its applicability to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could take a stab at cleaning that up, certainly. I'm not exactly sure what I'd be happy to work with you offline on some language changes that clarify what it is you need. And just because we're having a bylaws discussion today and we vote on some changes, doesn't mean that we can't vote next meeting on some more changes too. I'll go ahead and point that out. So if this is a provision that we want to take a look at for some more modifications, I'm happy to do that.
That's great. Thank you. Chair, may I move on to the next one?
Of course.
So your favorite topic, public comment, which is E, which I know we've already discussed, but I just wanted to share that at the beginning where it says all requests to address the Fair Board on matters other than a public hearing, blah, 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 all the way through 2 minutes per person. It just appears as if the board can pick and choose who it hears from and about what it hears, and it doesn't really specify that it would be about items on the agenda. So I'd like to see that addressed. And then given the importance of our board listening to everybody, I'd recommend maybe 2 minutes per meeting for each person to speak at the beginning, with a maximum set aside of 15 minutes, which would give us roughly 7 people. And those requesting to speak must submit it in writing to the executive director what their topic will be to be discussed, but not approved. This is how we do it in the council when I implemented it back then, and it's worked out really well.
Okay, so do we have any other questions before we address what we'll do next?
I've got two more.
Oh, yes, sorry. Go right ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. I just wanted to bring that up. And then it doesn't say it in here. I'm assuming it's just understood, but it says any member of the Metro Council who desires to speak on public hearing can do so. One thing that the Metro Planning Commission does and several of the other boards allow the council members to speak first so they can get out of there. So that was something I wanted to bring to your attention. And then time limits. Metro School Board allows speakers 2 minutes to address the board during public hearing, and that seems to work really well, and it flies by. 2 minutes, I will tell you, goes really fast when you're trying to do that. Some of them have 3 minutes. I just thought we might want to stipulate the amount of time so that it doesn't seem that we're acting arbitrarily, capriciously, or randomly, that we just stipulate that this is the way it's going to be. And those were my comments.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Weiner. Commissioners Hemmer or Bergeron, do you have questions?
This is Jason Bergeron. One item that I did want to maybe talk a little bit about was the capital budget section. And I think I'll start with an apology that Laura had when Laura had suggested possible topics for us to think about. She had mentioned some tweaks to the capital budget, and I think in my head I sent feedback, and then I didn't actually do it. And so, but on the capital budget, I did agree with Laura's kind of suggestion of maybe having some sort of mechanism to more formally vet out capital budget items. You know, we've kind of done this. It seems like in a little bit of an informal sense with Fair Park and the stadium before we went to the official business matters on those. But I think it would be a good exercise, especially because you know, we just heard pretty harrowing details from Councilman Sledge about where things might go if this rather absurd proposed referendum moves ahead, you know, and continued targeting of the fairgrounds in part by certain quarters. But it just seems like maybe having a little bit more of meat on how the Fair Board actively vets potential capital budget projects, and at least has that mechanism to provide that feedback to the other rest of Metro government, I think would be a good thing.
Thank you, Commissioner Bergeron. Commissioner Hemmer, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Okay. So it seems like we've got quite a few things to address here. Mr. Dickerson, do we need to take a vote, or can we?
My suggestion would be, because we have so many other additional edits, it might make sense for you all to defer this one meeting for me to work with Commissioner Weiner and Commissioner Bergeron on their proposed edits, and then we'll come back with one at the next meeting, if that works.
That works for me. So we would need a motion to defer.
Yeah, motion to defer. If someone wants to do that motion.
I move to defer. This is Sherry Weiner.
This is Jason Bergeron. I'll second.
Great, thank you. Do we, let's do a verbal roll call here on a vote, unless we have any discussion. Okay, great. Commissioner Hemmer?
Aye.
Commissioner Bergeron?
I don't know if I need to say my name again. Jason Bergeron, aye.
Commissioner Weiner?
This is Commissioner Weiner, Sherry Weiner. Aye.
Excellent. And I, Erin McAnally, am also an aye. Okay, so we'll come back to that next time. We're still in old business here. We're moving on to 2020 racing season update.
Hi, it's Laura Womack again. I'm going to defer this. I know we have both Bob Sargent from Track Enterprises and Randy Dice of D&D Events on the line to talk about the season as it is so far. But I do want to thank them and our staff who have been involved in all the work that they've done to have a racing season. It's been a very different racing season than we've had in the past, and I'm just really grateful that we were able to be a leader in resuming some outdoor events, and I want to thank everybody for their effort because it's been really teamwork. So I will turn it over to Bob and Randy, and they can update us on what the seasons look like so far, and we've got 2 races to go.
This is Bob Sargent. First, I want to thank everyone for giving us time to talk today and give some updates, and Laura and her staff for the whole year. Randy's and myself, staff, we've worked really hard to, change some things and get a good season here for the community and the race fans and the board. Obviously, COVID has hit and gave us quite a challenge. We deal with Mother Nature and weather as a normal thing that we have to deal with, but the COVID twist has been very challenging for us. We've worked with the doctor and the health department and everyone on all sorts of protocols and things of that nature. So it seems like we're nearing the end of our season, and I'm looking forward to 2021 and beyond. So the events we've had have been well attended. We've worked very hard and diligently on sound issues for the community and curfew times and things of that nature, and run an efficient show. We've learned a lot, and we always have room to improve and again, keep very good records and track of those things. Left is a local show this weekend, and then the All-American 400 the last weekend of October. So again, that's a quick recap. I'll let anyone ask questions. Randy, maybe want to mention a few things.
Does anyone have any questions? If no one has any questions, this is Randy Dice. I just want to add to what Bob said. We've done the sound reports, the muffler reports. I've sent them to Laura this morning, early this morning, so she has that she will, let y'all just see at some point. We are continuing to monitor all that. We continue to monitor the, our end times, start times, and all that as well. As Bob said, the season's been, hit with the COVID, but we've got through. We've got 2 more races this weekend, and then All-American. So, again, if no one has any questions, then we're moving on and looking ready for 21.
Mr. Dice and Mr. Sargent, I just want to thank you for your diligence and care in this this season. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Communication is the most key part.
Absolutely. Laura, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you. So the other thing that is outstanding from our last meeting was the board took a vote to work with Track Enterprises to renegotiate some of the terms of the contract in light of COVID. Certainly the first version of the contract was forward with the thought that we were going to have a normal racing season. As you know, attendance has been capped at only 20%. We do hope that increases a little bit by the end of in our last 2 races, but up until this time, attendance has been limited. as a result, some of the financial terms within the contract are no longer appropriate. And so we did take the time to work with Bob, and you have a draft amendment in your packets to that. So the changes that were made to the original agreement, the financial terms were $3,000 flat rental fees for local races, and for what I guess we're calling sanction races, the All-American, that had increased to $6,000. So under the circumstances, with taking an 80% reduction in attendance, we have reduced and negotiated a $1,000 payment for the local races, and then $2,000 for the All-American, anticipating that there will be still significant attendance caps placed on the races through the remaining season.
Thank you for that overview, Laura. Has everyone had a chance to look over the amendment? And if so, do we have a motion? Or any questions for Laura?
Commissioner Hammer, a motion we approve.
Do we have a second?
Second. Sherry Winter.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, great. Let's take a roll call vote. Commissioner Hammer?
Aye.
Commissioner Weiner?
Aye.
Commissioner Bergeron?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Erin McAnally is an aye. Okay, great. Thank you all for working on that. Thank you for everything that you're doing, Mr. Dice and Mr. Sargent. We will move on now to another agenda item concerning the 2021 racing season. Would you like to take that?
Yes, I can start it off. So it is now time to start looking to the future and to 2021 and beyond on for our racing promoters. You know, Track Enterprises was granted a one-year contract through 2020. And there are several components that are involved in contracting. And I'll defer to Bob and to explain a little bit about the timing. But what I would like to recommend to the board is that we listen to Bob, and I would recommend that we move forward with contracting with Track Enterprises for 2021 and beyond, based on the conversation that we're going to have with Bob today. We've had a lot of conversations about kind of the stability that a decision now will bring to, our race fans and our racers and the fairgrounds as a whole. I think that having if we push off the decision to look at our future racing years, it encourages a lot of angst amongst all of us. It's really not in the best interest of the fairgrounds to have so much uncertainty. So with that said, and certainly a recommendation from me that we contract with Track Enterprises, I would like to turn it over to Bob and certainly welcome any discussion that anyone has about racing for next year and beyond.
Thank you, Laura. This is Bob Sargent again. I think the first thing I want to say again is reiterate, in the thanking and the respect that I have for the board, the job that Laura and her staff are doing with all the distractions and things that are going on here. You know, we do, Track Enterprises does events in 14 different states and 26 venues. And this one, there's a lot of moving parts here, as, you know, we listened to earlier in the news reports and what have you. So I just want to make sure that y'all knew that I was very aware of all that. And I want to be a good partner in working through those with you. You know, for the good times and the bad times and the adjustments and the audibles and everything that we need to be flexible enough to work with. So with that said, the caveat to that is in the racing industry, there's scheduling to do with these national events and also for the local racers to have the knowledge that there'll be a racetrack for them the next year so they can go out and spend quite a sizable amount on their race cars and things like that. So there is some future planning for the whole industry as a whole. The thing to address today when I am requesting a longer term is the national events we do. You're familiar probably with the ARCA event we do. Well, their schedule is 99% done right now. And to put that publicly, we would need the confirmation from the Nashville facility here. Also, we have a new event, a couple new events, but one large one that they've let us go ahead and announce will be Tony Stewart, the NASCAR driver, along with some Wall Street investors, are going to start a new series of stars to come out and race. They call it the SRX series. If anybody want to Google that, CBS, the television network, will broadcast those live, and they're only doing 6 in 2021, looking for future dates. So to try to get by for a date of one of those 6, they also want to know about our long-term agreements here and in our relationships. And they also see the news of what's going on, whether it be with the soccer, the referendums, all the issues. So that's some of the factors that we look at. We're also aware of some talks with SMI and NASCAR and things of that nature, and the movements that they have on the other edge here of town. So all that are factors in our request to continue our relationship and actually improve it and make it move forward, even though these other items, distractions, issues are going on at the same time. We know a lot of those will take a long period of time. And again, I just want to reiterate Randy and I's ability to be flexible and work with you on that. So I hope that explains some of our future plans and our need for some more solidify some more future here. And I want to open to any questions that someone might have, or just general conversation about this.
Thank you, Mr. Sargent, for the request and for the flexibility that you have. Do we have any questions from the board?
I actually have one. This is Laura Womack. Bob, are the races that you are pursuing, for instance, this Tony Stewart, is that in the same size and class of race that we have typically run?
Again, it's a brand new series, but it could very well be the largest event you've had. They would look for capacity grandstands. So similar to the World of Outlaw event you had the year before, our hopes for All-American are always that. We look for 50 to 90 to 100% grandstand capacity. So that is definitely what they would be looking at. It would be on the NASCAR level.
Hey,
thus generating parking revenue, community motels, hotels, things like that.
So Bob, this is Jason Bergeron. So, for example, with SRX, could those cars run at the speedway as is right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they'll be at I want to say grassroots facilities such as this. They're looking at one, and we do in Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Raceway, which is similar to this. Their They're thinking as a grassroots setting with 10,000 seats or more. So they won't be a small facility such as this Highland Rim, but they won't be a Daytona either. So this is exactly the setting they're looking for.
And in terms of the vehicle, what differences would that vehicle, if any, be in regard to what we are running at typically here now?
It'll be similar. It'll be a stock car type, somewhere between what we run here is called a super late model. So you have a super late model with a full body. You have ARCA, which is very similar to NASCAR, where you see on TV these full body heavier stock cars. This will be somewhere in the middle of those two, probably leaning a lot towards the ARCA car. The idea in this series is more towards the different names that they'll be bringing in. Tony Kanaan is from the IndyCar series, Bill Elliott, Tony Stewart, some names you may recognize from NASCAR. Their idea is to bring in a who's who to run an all-star type series. They used to have a series like this, any race fans here on the phone, that they call the IROC series. They ran with NASCAR in conjunction, and that's what they would do. They would bring in the champions of several different genres of motorsports and let them all race together. I think the excitement for us is the ownership that they brought together. Again, George Pine of New York, he's a very big person in the industry. Tony Stewart, obviously, and CBS is actually financially involved in this series. So they blocked out six Saturday nights. It'll be a Saturday night prime time on CBS. So I think that's the big attraction of this, is just the names that they'll bring and then the professionalism.
Great, thanks. Any other questions from the board?
Yes, this is Commissioner Hammer for Laura. I guess my question's around, I'm not sure if we need to do an RFP or, around that. I know you mentioned 1 year or maybe multiple years. So I wasn't sure if we had requirements around that. And then also how this tie-up or contract would impact, discussions with BMI.
Yeah, I can address both of those. It's Laura Womack. One, we are not required to RFP. We have elected to do it in the past when we had wanted to go out for a long-term contract, but it is not required. So under the circumstances and with having the experience that we did in 2020, that's what is resulting in my recommendation that we continue to contract with Track Enterprises. In regards to further discussions with SMI, certainly those are ongoing. And as we did with the 2020 contract, I think I would recommend that there be very specific language in any contract moving forward, whether it be a metro improvement, a metro funded improvement of the track, or any public-private partnership, that we have language in the contract that does address maybe that new project, so that we have flexibility. It's going to be a balance between, again, the stability that having a contract with Track Enterprises will bring, especially to local racing, but then allowing Metro flexibility and the Fair Board flexibility to make improvements, whether, again, that be Metro driven or public-private partnership with SMI.
One more thing I'd like to add, this is Bob Sargent again, is that I am in constant communication with SMI and NASCAR both. So we have started the relationship already, and they're aware of what I have moving forward. And so I just want the board to know that we are very close relationships and continue that.
Thank you, Mr. Sargent. Any other questions from the board? Do we need to make a motion here, Laura or Alex, to start those negotiations if the board approves?
This is Laura. So in the past, what we have done is voted to begin conversations or negotiations. And then typically a board member has either volunteered or been volunteered to participate on in those discussions to bring forth a draft contract to the board for their consideration. That's what we've done in the past. So that is an option at this point.
Okay, great. Is there a board member that would like to take that on?
This is Jason Bergeron. I would be happy to do that, having gone around on this a couple times now, and would be happy to continue to do that.
Okay, great. Would you like to make a motion? Or would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that Commissioner Bergeron be appointed to work through the contract to bring the contract back to the board.
Second. Caleb.
Great. Any discussion?
With that on the floor, I mean, I guess I would like to kind of confirm a little bit of what I think I'm hearing from the board. You know, and now that with that motion pending, you know, it seems to me the board is all willing to discuss or willing to consider a multi-year commitment, and I know I am. For the sake of stability, I also, you know, I think the board is well aware of my opinions of SMI's conduct so far. I don't find them to be a very promising partner. I think that the options of that are further away than they've ever been, and we've had, you know, more large-scale racing coming to the area. I think that the chances of SMI in a deal after the way they've handled things over the last 3 years and sort of kept us paralyzed to try to stabilize things has been all negative. And I just have really low regard for the way they and their lobbyists have handled themselves. So with all that said, you know, I do want to, you know, I'm anxious to sort of be able to explore in these discussions multi-year commitments and finding sort of long-term stability for the Speedway, you know, as a really great local racing hub that it can be. And so I guess part and parcel with that, as I go to have those discussions with Laura and Mr. Sargent and Mr. Dice, you know, it's trying to understand that the board is sort of generally okay with a multi-year type commitment.
Yes, definitely okay with the multi-year commitment, with the caveat that I know, Mr. Bergeron, you have very strong opinions about SMI. I have not had that experience with them, and I think that those conversations are still happening. And I just want to state for the record that I personally am not opposed to those conversations continuing, and I think that there's a lot to explore there. And there's the added aspect that we definitely are going to have to see improvements to the racetrack one way or the other. So that being said, when we're contemplating a multi-year contract, we definitely have to consider that. And I think Mr. Sargent and Mr. Dice are aware of that no matter what, like, we're going to be looking at the need for flexibility in that. And I think the contract needs to reflect that.
Fair enough.
So that would be my request, is that irregardless of who the potential larger partner might be, or if it's an investment by Metro, that those flexibilities are contemplated in the contract. Anyone else from the board have anything to add? Okay. Shall we have a vote then? Commissioner Hemmer?
Aye.
Commissioner Weiner?
Sherry, aye.
Commissioner Bergeron.
Aye.
And I, Erin McAnally, am an aye as well. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. We're going to move on now to event update. I believe Laura and Mr. Wallace.
Yeah, so like I said this is Laura. Like I said during my update is that we are moving forward with some outdoor events, working very closely with both Office for Emergency Management as well as Metro Health Department. Just to give a little bit of background, Metro Health Department has put together a template for events to complete. It's a mechanism whereby events will develop their protocols for COVID, and they will be reviewed and approved or disapproved by Metro Health. And the extra step that we have added with our contracting is that those become attachments to the contract. So that said, we have one that has been approved, and we have several events actually on the books for this weekend, and I will turn it over to Scott Wallace. He is a panelist, and he can update you on what we have on the horizon. Scott?
Thanks, Laura. This is Scott Wallace, and good morning to everyone. We appreciate everyone's assistance in getting this done. We've already had an event in September with the Emotion Light Show, which was very successful. It was a no-contact event that came in. Cars just drove around the track and was able to look at lights. And it was so successful that the group is working with us to try to do something in December for a Christmas light show, which would be exciting. Same thing, maybe a little bit more by us being in phase 3 now. We may have a little bit more ability to do some walkthroughs and things like that. We understand that and consider that Nashville's, the eyes of the nation is on Nashville because next week's presidential debate. So we're being very careful about how we're doing events. Like Laura said, we've been in contact with the OEM and also social services and with the health department to make sure that these events are going to be going on seamlessly as possible. On Friday, we will have the ABC contractors that they usually have an event with us every year. They decided to do a smaller event called, and they're going to be doing some pumpkin carving. Basically, the people, a part of it will be, will pull up into the sheds and do some pumpkin carving, which is a small event, 75 to 100 people. Then on Saturday will be our busiest day in a while. Veg Fest will be back in town. They're going to also be in Shed 1 and 2, and their event will be Saturday and Sunday. Of course, the race that has been mentioned will be also Saturday. Then on Sunday, we'll have the firefighter benefit concert in the racetrack. That event will be a benefit to local firefighters, and I forgot the gentleman that's going to be singing at it. I wish I remembered, but I'm sorry. But I can get that to you if anybody wants to. We're also working on the following weekend to do a rodeo, the Rancho 231 rodeo, Boxing in America. We're working on that for the first weekend and the first Saturday in November, and which will be in conjunction with the All-American 400. The following weekend, monster trucks will be in the racetrack, and we're also working in December. We had Porter Flea that has been here for the last 3 years doing events. They're willing to go outside as well. And all these things that we're doing is pretty much a tester for what Laura mentioned earlier. We're trying to do work with the flea market office to do an outdoor flea market. So we're working on, these as testers for something larger than like a flea market that we would want. Then the last thing that we are working on as well, Camp Gladiator, they've been using they had been using the parking lots to do an early morning workout. So we're working on them as well to try to come in and do some workouts under the shed. That's right now. We're working on trying to get that to be available. Of course, we have to work with with the shelter being there, work around trying to make sure that we're social distance enough from the shelter and making sure that everything is safe. So we have been working diligently. Again, thanks to every department that has been a part of this. We're excited to get some action and some movement at the fairgrounds. That event that we had last month was very good because people were just driving by. You could see the lights and people were wondering what was going on, and we got plenty of calls and people that enjoyed it. So we thank the board and everyone else that has been a part of this and allowed us to do that. The staff is excited to get some movement over there. I think this is what we do. And so we want to make sure that we continue to do that with the understanding that we're going to be safe and we're going to make sure that everyone has a good time as well. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to take them right now.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. And I heard rave reviews about the light show. I'm very sorry that I missed it, and I hope that we have another one sometime soon. Do we have any questions from the board?
Yes, this is Commissioner Hammer. Thank you, Scott, for that update and for all you and your staff's hard work during these challenging times. Just curious about bookings for 2021 and how event planners are they starting to book things? Are they calling, asking questions? Kind of what's the timeline of such? Just kind of a general update around future stuff if things are coming back to normal.
Thanks for answering that question, Commissioner Hammer. This is Scott Wallace again. Yes, we are getting some inquiries about 2021. Some of our, as you all probably will know, and if you don't know that, most of our signature events are in the beginning of 2021. And they are getting a little nervous about, if we're going to open or not. We've been trying to work around even some of them want to move back in the calendar year to make sure that, their event is going to happen. Nashville, they've been doing them for, some for 25, 30 years. And so it's very important that, they want to stay, but, their bottom line is also in question. So we have been receiving inquiries. We've been receiving inquiries about some new events because they are finding out, that we've had some upgrades and things like that. So we have been doing that. We've been working with our permanent promoters first to make sure that they're taken care of, and then with the new promoters, letting them know that these dates are tentative at best until we know what's going to go on, until we get to either our new normal or back to normal. So we've been working hard on that as well. So 2021 has been, on in our sights for months now, making sure that people are aware of what's going on at the fairgrounds and making sure that we are able to still serve the public and also bring some events in and all that. So thank you for that question. It's been a juggling act, but we've worked it out and trying to make it sure that people are taken care of.
I will make mention, it's Laura Womack, just to make sure everybody is aware. We continue to have discussions again with OEM and social services about their needs and what the shelter status is. So again, more update will come in the next couple weeks. That said, is once the buildings are vacated, I just want to make sure everybody's aware we are going to need some time. It's not something that we will, once everybody leaves and the shelter is closed, that we will be able to open up the next week. Be aware that we have, obviously we have to clean and sanitize the building. We've got repairs to make, and we also have warranty work that is pending at this point under the circumstances. So we've got some work to do. And so it very well could be, 4-6 weeks of work once the buildings are vacated to make sure that everything is in repair and sanitized and good working order before we open. So I don't want to set up any expectations at this point that we will immediately be able to reopen as soon as the homeless shelters are closed.
Thank you, Laura. Any other questions from the board?
This is Jason Bergeron. Hey, Scott, I just wanted to ask about with a couple of the possibilities with Porter Flea and VegFest. Those are a little more closer contact than all car, at least as I understand them. And so just wanted to understand what kind of thoughts you guys are having as to kind of protocols, maybe as to capacity in crowd handling and, obviously mask compelling, let's say, just because we've seen even recently with very outdoor events, very high profile outdoor events that have ended up being super spreader events. So outdoor alone is not enough. And so just trying to understand what are the thoughts and protocols around some of those events that we might have coming up.
Thank you, Commissioner. And this is Scott Wallace again. Yeah, they both have given us their COVID protocols. Both of them understand that the 500 people limit is in order. Porter Flea has a ticketing, and this is one of the things that we've been working on as well. I'm glad you asked the question. Basically an appointment protocol that they're going to have, because those events, especially Porter Flea, can get a lot of people there. So they have a way that they're going to have tickets to be appointments. And basically you can only come in for a certain duration, a 2-hour duration is what they're working on. So, if you wanted to come, you can come between 2 and 4. And then they're going to stop for about 30 minutes, make sure, each vendor is cleaning up their area. Then from 4:30 to whatever, that's what they're working on. And that event's in December, and we're still working with that. As far as VegFest is concerned, they have capped their tickets to that extent. With the understanding when we first discussed this, there was only 125 people that could be there. So, but now that we've moved into phase 3, they have opened up the ticketing, and we are going to make sure that we're going to have people on staff there to make sure that they are going to be social distance. They're going to make sure they're wearing masks. Laura just reminded me that we needed to order some signage we're going to put out. Also, we're working on getting some hand sanitizing stations out there as we speak. We're working on that. So all those protocols, and again, Commissioner, we don't want to look like, being a Metro department, we want to make sure that we are doing the things, that health department is regulating, because we don't want to be the ones to be a super spreader, and make the Metro look bad, make you all look bad. And with the understanding that eyes are on us, just like the races, just like the Titans, just like the soccer team, eyes are on us because we are a Metro department. So we are being very careful about that and making sure that people are aware of what we expect. So we're going to be diligent about it. We're going to make sure that things are being done right, and the promoters know that. If it's not, we're going to shut it down, and so they're very aware of that, and they've put a lot of resources into having the event, so they don't want it to be shut down. So they're going to be very careful about making sure that their vendors and also their patrons are going to follow the rules and regulations. And I'll be happy to share with the board what they are if you'd like me to.
That'd be great. Thanks very much, Scott, and really appreciate all you're doing and all your hard work, and appreciate these promoters as well, who put on great events.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that.
Okay, great. I think that concludes our meeting today. Do we have a motion to adjourn? We don't have any other questions?
Motion to adjourn, Commissioner Hammer.
Do we have a second?
Jason Bergeron, second.
Excellent. All right, I'll take a verbal roll call here. Commissioner Hammer?
Aye.
Commissioner Weiner?
Aye.
Commissioner Bergeron?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Thank you, everybody. See you next month.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.